I'm Nicki Minaj, and this
is Authenticity Radio.
Authenticity Radio with Slade Suiter.
Let's go to the beach, eat, let's go get a wave. They say what they gonna say. Have a drink, clink, found a Bud Light. Bad like me, it's hard to come by.
And now, your host, who has the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper, Slade Suiter.
Thank you very much. This is Slade Suiter, broadcasting from Authenticity Radio Studios here in Barcelona, Spain.
Oh, Bill, you know how it started out, man. Looking for that woman that they call Lucia. She done moved.
Have you ever heard of Meridian therapy? Have you ever heard of psychological acupuncture? Have you ever heard of tapping? It just so happens, up my sleeve, well, it's not really up my sleeve, on the other side of this microphone, or way up, I should say, in Norwich, UK, is Duncan Weir. Is that right, Duncan?
Absolutely right, Slade.
Awesome.
Yep.
Welcome to Authenticity Radio, Duncan.
Thank you very much, Slade. What a wonderful introduction. My mother couldn't have done better.
Okay, well, I've never been compared to your mother before, Duncan.
She's a nice lady.
Oh, good. I accept it.
And she speaks very highly on me, but you're on the same level.
Good. Duncan, you are known as a Meridian therapist, a psychological acupuncturist. I don't know if that's even a name. I kind of like it. And you do tapping.
Yes, I do. And it works very well. The whole idea of tapping is where we take some points on the hand and upper body, and we tap these while we think of any negatives, including pain or things like fear-based thoughts, anything that feels negative to you, and then we release that fear or that pain-related thought.
Oh boy! Well, you're in business because there's a lot of anxiety out there with today's crisis and family situations and conflict.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
People looking for a resolution, and so I'm happy to have you here because I have a lot of questions about tapping.
Okay.
I enjoy taking the common sense approach to things.
Yes.
Now, I haven't had much experience with tapping, but I am open and I want to learn about it. So help me, Duncan. Help me. What is the history of tapping? Where does it come from?
Tapping sort of started. It was called thought field therapy and was devised in the US. And it actually, funny enough, it began by a gentleman who was treating a lady called Mary, I believe, and she had a very, very violent fear of water. And he noticed that during their sessions together, he sort of started tapping on some different areas while she was singing, and she said that the fear was starting to get released very quickly. And this was then later picked up by Gary Craig, who actually turned it around, added a few bits and bobs to make it what it is today, but is actually called Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT.
Emotional Freedom Technique.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is what I practice now. I call it tapping. It can be called anything, really. It's it's just a name, but I just feel tapping's a bit easier because I've said to people about emotional freedom, and the first thing they say is, "Oh, that's okay. I'm not emotional." And it's not about, it's not about being emotional. It's the fact that we carry around emotions, and some of these emotions can stick to us, and they can be the wrong types of emotion. And so, and that's about the whole thing of what we do is we take away the negative emotions. What it actually happens is when you think of something that brings you a feeling of fear or any type of negative emotion, it's almost like a short circuit within our own energy system of our own body. It's a bit like shorting out a fuse on a plug, and you get that funny feeling or that nasty feeling. and that is this technique just stops that fusing out. It kind of, the mind has a corrupt, runs a corrupt program against a certain type of thought. And this is kind of like rebooting that thought.
Mm-hmm. You know, I was listening to you and running what you're saying across my own experience. And in the times in my life where I became stuck with either a thought pattern or illogical fear, there it is, illogical, irrational, meaning that I didn't have the power of my mind to say, hey, it's just a snake, or it's just a spider, or those frightening giraffes over in the park. They are so big and so frightening, I do not want to mess with them. And so the fear of the giraffes grabs a hold of me, and I react to it. I know I shouldn't be afraid of giraffes, and I don't want to be afraid of giraffes. However, I have a reaction of fear to giraffes. And that's all the more frustrating and embarrassing. So what do you think of that, Duncan?
Yeah, that's true. And I think that the thing with, fear is it's homegrown, and this is why it seems so real. Like, for instance, giraffes, by their very nature, aren't dangerous. I mean,
Oh.
yeah, but they are if something happened years ago, or I don't know, as a child or something like that, you saw a film and you was agitated at the time, and mind will pick up on the slightest little thing, maybe a giraffe, and instead of now, when anybody would say, think about a giraffe, instead of just seeing an animal there, the mind goes put it into a fear box, and it's got fear written all over it, it's got nasty teeth on it, it's got nails sticking out of the box. So before you actually get to the vision of the giraffe, you're already feeling fear. Mm-hmm. So and because fear is very, very personal, it's not, if we was to go to see a film or that you wrote that was scary, I would actually interpret that film completely different to you. I wouldn't be feeling your fear, I would be feeling my own mind's homegrown fear. And this is why it feels so close and so real. And this is why fear is such an issue in everybody's lives.
We may not know where the origin is, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah.
And so we're not dealing with a regressive therapy. We're trying to figure out where the origin of your fear is.
No.
What you're doing is kind of like building a bridge between your higher reasoning principles, your higher mental capacities, and to your emotions as well. Does that sound right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, literally, all we do is we take the giraffe out of the box, and we throw away the box. Then what the process does is, then when you go back to think of a giraffe, we've actually cleared the fearful thought about the giraffe. That's all. You don't. It's nothing else than that. All we do is we haven't changed the giraffe in any way. We've just taken the corrupt thought away from the giraffe. The mind has said that the giraffe was fearful. All we've done is take away fear. That's all we've done. The giraffe is exactly the same. I haven't made you forget anything. I haven't made you regress into anything. We've just taken that negative feeling away from the subject or situation.
I kind of like that. This sounds logical to me.
Yes, because it's no good. The other way of doing it is to put you in a pen full of giraffes and then make you run around with them until you get to.
Slow down, Slade. You're gonna hurt yourself.
But this is a much gentler way. We don't have to bombard you with pictures of giraffes. We just say, think of a giraffe. The problem is that we all live with labels, and it's very difficult to. So if somebody says to me, I have a phobia of blood, then that's an extra thing that we have to fight. Because you've now, instead of trying to get over your fear of blood, what would happen is you now say, I have a phobia, because that label was given to you by somebody else or even yourself. So what we do is we sit down and we say, right, what is it about blood, or what is it about giraffes that actually, freaks you out? And then instead of just saying the whole thing, which is a bit too global, by saying I have a phobia of giraffes, we say, well, is it, maybe it's the way their neck sways, maybe it's the way that their back slopes, or maybe it's the way that they bend down when they try and drink water or anything like that. And we write these things down because everything has, imagine it's a bit like an onion where we have these different layers. We have the core issue sitting right in the middle, but there's all these other little layers, and this, so for instance, say you had 4 things about them. You didn't like the way they walked, their colour, their long necks, and, their funny shaped heads. Well, they would all go together to make up this thing that you call a phobia of giraffes or a phobia of blood or whatever.
So it's kind of like an articulation, composite of my dislikes of the giraffe.
Yes. So it's not often that I just don't like giraffes. It's like every time I love the phobia of spiders, because people say I hate spiders, but when they actually write down what they don't like about spiders, you get, well, I don't like the way they walk across the carpet. I don't like the way their bodies look. I don't like the way they sometimes move sideways. I don't like their long legs and things like this. And then when you actually write this down, then you can then start to see what this fear is made up of. And you take each one of those parts, and then you gently tap on while we think of that particular part, and then we reduce that. We score it from 0, which is not much, to 10, which is a lot. And you give each one of those a score, and then you work on each one. You get them lower and lower and lower, and then eventually the actual phobia just moves away. That is all. It's so gentle, but it's very powerful. And in 95% of the time, it works first time.
I was just going to say that something that's been embedded could be my entire life long, and just being released like that, it seems like it's too easy.
I've treated hundreds and hundreds of people, and I find that you can just dispel even the longest held phobias in a matter of minutes. And that's what I go by. I don't go by the proof. I go by the amount of people who've said to me, I used to have a phobia of this, and I've tried your technique, and I've now not got a phobia. And I actually treated somebody who had a phobia, a really bad phobia of spiders, and they said, well, yeah, I think it's gone. And I said, that's great. You do know when it's gone. It's kind of a strange feeling, because suddenly the fear just lifts, and you're kind of disbelieving that you've now not got this fear, and yet. Days later, they phoned me up and they said, oh my God, I've got to tell you this. They said, I saw a spider on the floor, I picked it up, put it in my hand and put it outside. And I put it outside.
And it bit me.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, nobody's phobia is ever about spiders biting them. It's really strange. It's about other things. And they actually put the spider outside, and they never realised that they then were ever frightened of spiders. It's such an amazing technique. Just away this underlying issue.
Okay, now Duncan, that sounds fantastic to me. And then at the same time, there's part of me that sounds too fantastic. I mean, does it really work that quick?
Yes, it does. Yeah, honestly, I've been with. I helped a lady a few years ago who had, funny enough, a bad phobia of water, and she was carrying this phobia around for about 25, 30 years. And I happened to be talking to her, and I said, well, just try this. And her phobia was so bad that she had to back into a shower, but she had to do it in such a way where it would take about half an hour to actually get into a shower and wash and get out, because she was so
poor girl.
Yes, and her husband and her wanted to go on a cruise, but she just couldn't handle it because
I could imagine not.
but I worked with her for about 10 minutes, and it was very evident that this went back to a childhood issue. And as we were tapping, she said, "Oh, I'm seeing something from my past." And I said, "Okay, what is that?" Because this often comes up. There's a thing. Oh, hang on, I never realised that thought. And so I asked her what it was, and she said, "I remember." She said, "One of my friends," she said, "died when we were kids." She said, "Playing in the river." She said, "I can remember them pulling the body out, she said, I can remember my mum coming down the road, and she grabbed my arm, and this was because her mum was just so relieved that she wasn't the one, and she grabbed her arm, and she said, that's what you get when you play around with water."
Oh, and dear.
That was it. So then we worked on that particular instance. We said, okay. And so I said, what about that? And she said, that's the way my mum grabbed my hand. And I said, okay. So we tapped on the feeling she got from how her mum grabbed her hand, and that was the key. And then the phobia left. And and she said, oh my God, She couldn't even. I'll tell you what she couldn't do. She couldn't put her fingers into a glass of water without